I've decided to make this video to tell you guys a little bit about my first experience as an English teacher in London. So I've been living in the UK for over 2 years now, but I've only been in London for 3 months. So I haven't been here for a long time. And when I first arrived in the UK, I had a full-time schedule with my online clients in Brazil. When I moved, a lot of them decided they would still want to keep having class, and because of that, I was really busy with my private clients. This year, I decided to make a bit of a change with my life and my business, and so I decided to come to London. But I have to confess, before arriving here, I had a few insecurities, and I actually think I'd like to. So being Brazilian in an industry where so many employers and students openly say that they want a native teacher is something that has made me feel insecure in certain situations. Not because I didn't think I was competent enough, but because I've always feared that this could create a problem for opportunities. What I found really difficult about that argument is that I've always felt like it's something unachievable, because, you know, if you say someone is a native speaker, it's not something that other teachers will be able to achieve. It's not a qualification, it's not a skill you can develop, it's not a course you can take, you simply are. It's completely luck of the draw. So when I first arrived in London, this was a concern that I had. It was a concern that I also had in Brazil when I started my career, but with lots of hard work, I managed to build my business and to find many students who trusted me and who knew about my competence, and with time it became irrelevant to me, but I didn't know how things were gonna be in the UK. And so I'm making this video to tell you guys that I am positively surprised, and I am so happy with this first term that I'm finishing now. And I think it's a moment to celebrate and also to give some ideas to other teachers. So I'd like to tell you guys about my story. So I arrived in London 3 months ago, and I, as I said, was very unsure if I would be able to get a job as an English teacher or not. My first thought was that employers would prefer a British teacher, and someone who wasn't a native speaker. I was really surprised because it took me a week from starting to send CVs to getting invited for job interviews. It was something like a week, maybe a little more, but it was really fast. This was a huge surprise because I had all these biases in my head, all these things that I assumed about the British, about the culture, about the ESL industry here, and so I was really surprised, positively surprised, that within 2 weeks I was actually turning down a few of the proposals I was getting, and I selected 2 schools which had a proposal that was well aligned with what I wanted to do. I didn't want full-time work with the school because I still have my online clients in Brazil, and I also work as an interpreter for the NHS. So it was really nice to see that qualifications and competence and just how well you hold yourself are things that people value so much in London. I found it really strange to start sending out CVs because one of my friends said, don't put your marital status, race, gender, nationality and ethnic background on your CV. We just don't, and age either. Yeah, on a CV we just don't do that. And I thought it was strange because I turned up for all my interviews with this story of how I wound up in London, and it was completely irrelevant for all my interviewers. They wanted to know about my skills. They didn't care about where I was born or, you know, what my first language was. All they cared about was that my English was good enough for teaching and that I had a solid background in teaching. And luckily I had both, and I think this was very good. I was very happy to see how fast things happened in London and how little it mattered what nationality I was. It was actually funny because one of my coordinators thought that I had grown up in Italy because all she's seen is the passport that I used as proof that I could work in the UK. So she doesn't actually know my whole, you know, history. And I think it just makes things so interesting. I think it would be so different in Brazil if someone was a foreigner. This would be something that people would ask in an interview. It's very common for people to ask you about whether you're married and if you have kids, if you don't, if you want. And here, people just don't ask these questions. So that was really interesting. As I said, I got a job fairly quickly, and I was pretty much booked up in less than a month, and that was wonderful. When it was time for me to finally start teaching, of course the little devil of insecurity started talking to me again, and I thought, okay, the schools are okay with having me as a teacher, but what about the students? Are they going to complain and say that they want a British teacher? Is this something, you know, extremely important to them? With how things were in Brazil, I knew that once a lot of students want to have a native speaker for a teacher, but once they get a teacher who is or isn't a native speaker, who can deliver a good class, a lot of them will not have a problem with your heritage, with your first language, which is one of the things that has helped me to grow so much as a professional back home. I didn't know how it would be in the UK. So I decided to do the exact same thing I've always done. I've added a lot of technology to my classes. I use a portable e-board that allows me to convert a TV or a projector into an interactive board. In both schools where I work, I combine this with my iPad Pro, and I use it for taking notes and for allowing students to control the board as well. I've done quite a bit of research on typical mistakes that speakers of their first languages made, so that I could have a general idea on what kind of clarification I need to provide. And I try to add a lot of creativity to every single lesson I delivered. So I felt like I built an excellent rapport with all of my students. And so this week, one of my courses has ended for the term, and I decided to do an end of course task, which I'm also leaving in the link here. So this end of course task is something I found online. It's a nice way for you to get feedback from your students on your classes. Also, it's a very good way for you to show them the progress that they've made in writing from the beginning of the course, if you assign them a writing task right at the beginning. And it's a good thing for you to keep so that you show your future students what your ground rules are like and what other students felt about the course. What was really nice about it, as I said, it's called, I don't know if I said it already, but it's called A Letter to L'Acquisition's Future Students. And they basically had to give advice and comment on what the course was like for them to the new students I'm gonna get. Wasn't expecting much. I had never done anything like that before, but when I read the responses that they gave to the questions, I have to say I almost cried, because, and I think I even get a bit emotional when I think about it. I think it's so nice to know that it didn't make any difference to the things that worried me. Didn't really make any difference to them. They seem to have benefited so much from my lessons, and I'm happy that they all felt like it was really learner-centered. I think almost all of them talked about how I made them work in pairs. Some commented that you shouldn't feel insecure if you come to my class, because the teacher will make sure that you are always interacting with a classmate. They've also commented how I was strict about them not using their first language, but at the same time I didn't do that in a way that was humiliating, and that they loved the technology and the lessons and everything. And this got me thinking a lot about just how a lot of the time we second guess ourselves, but also about how a good teacher is a good teacher regardless of their origin. If you guys want to see the whole task and my students' responses, I'm also leaving them with a link here. And I think it's such a wonderful opportunity. It's so nice to have the privilege of being in London and teaching in London. And to all teachers out there, I'd like to tell you that if you're feeling insecure about just anything, you know, it could be like me, the fact that you're not British, or about turning up and teaching online to a group of students and you've never used a computer for teaching, or looking for a new job, or applying for a master's, just anything. Always remember that it's okay to feel insecure, but don't let your fear hold you back. Don't let your insecurities win. There's a lot of, you will find in your life a lot of situations where people will like and value your work even more than you expected them to. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's a wonderful first step in London for me. I hope this has been a useful video. As I said, I'm leaving a couple of things in the description here. If you guys would like to ask any questions, or if I can help with anything, please let me know. I do recommend you do the end of term task with your students, because it's really nice to get some feedback, to see how they felt about the course and to see what kind of rapport you had with them. And I guess that's it. See you soon. Bye.